This episode of The General's Gentleman is sponsored by Ashes of the Singularity. Take control of epic battles in a massive scale RTS where you control thousands of units. With up to 14 players per game, it's the biggest RTS to date.
Welcome to The General's Gentleman.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Total Annihilation. Casting something old school today, bringing back the 97 nostalgia. Now, this is the second game that I've casted. I haven't quite decided if I'm going to actually post the first one. It's sort of embarrassing because the other game that I casted, I actually thought it was this replay. And then halfway through it, I realized, oh, this isn't the right replay because it was the same map. And that game wasn't as interesting. Whereas I did flick through this one a bit and like this game looks pretty interesting. So I'm definitely keen to bring this one. So I guess I'll do another bit of an intro if this is the first one that you see. This is the Escalation mod for Total Annihilation, which is a huge improvement to the base game. Updates the visuals, adds a whole bunch of new units and structures in, such as a tier 3 and tier 3 structures. You get experimentals for both factions. Rebalances a lot of the game, makes it more intuitive and accessible. So it's really cool. I didn't know that this mod existed. I just started playing some TA recently because I work on a game called Ashes of the Singularity. I'm the new lead designer, and that's a large-scale RTS game, which was heavily inspired by TA, and I never played it. I played only like a little bit of TA as a kid, because I was 4 years old when this game came out, and so I wanted to, I guess, appreciate the roots of where Ashes came from. I played a lot of Subcom, but Ashes is more similar to TA than it is to Subcom. And I can see where some of the specific designs have sort of crossed in that regard. But regardless, today I am casting a match between Race as the core in the top right, and his opponent in the bottom left playing as the arm, Randy. It's not a very intimidating name. It was pro_Randy, but I'll just call this him Randy. I mean, I don't know if he's a pro. Maybe he's just saying that. I have to validate his claim. Can't just take him for his word. So already we see some of the scout vehicles coming out. These are the Weasels. They're looking for damage. Weasels are low damage, of course, but it doesn't matter. That's something really crazy about TA is the structures are so weak. All the structures die incredibly well. All of the economy structures, at least, die very quickly too. Even things such as the scout vehicles, whereas in Subcom, structures are significantly more durable. So I'm coming mainly from a background of Subcom, so I can't help but seeing this through the lens of Subcom, and I imagine more people have played Subcom than TA, or at least have played it lately, so they kind of have forgotten what TA is like. Well, we have the Peewees. These are the infantry K-bots. These are definitely able to fight these Weasels and will prevent them from passing. So instead, it's going to force them to wrap around and just look for a flank. So pretty good. If he finds the radar, that'll take that out very quickly. The solar collectors are a bit more durable than the wind collectors there, but you can at least delay their mining. I do quite like how when you shoot the solar collectors, they fold up. Pretty good defense here coming out of the arm player. Oh, actually uses the D-gun. I don't think I've seen a D-gun used to take out a single scout, but in the early game situation, he has so much energy that I'm sure he's back to full storage already. Generally, you don't get additional storage for some time, so really no reason to hold on to that D-gun. And so it's the Peewees being sent out in response, looking for the counter-attack. Raider tanks have been deployed. These are the fast assault tanks. They're able to take the Peewees on, heads on. Yeah, can't really find an angle through. Really good defense. Even a scout vehicle can do so much damage if it's able to slip through the cracks and take out some metal extractors. So this is going to be a challenge to cast. TAs, it's a pretty slow game. Not as action-packed as, you know, other RTS games. I guess there's action, but a lot of the action isn't significant. You know, there's a lot of little trades and skirmishes, and that they don't carry on a lot of significance. Not in the way that you do see in other RTS games. Also, if anyone's wondering why I'm not casting this with Blake, the guy that I always cast with, he's never played TA, and he's only played a small amount of Subcom, and that was years ago, so he wouldn't be much help. Especially not since I can't see what the units are. So I mean, even I'm going to be struggling to actually know what the units are, and I played a decent amount of this lately, of Escalation, which is the mod for TA. I think I played maybe 20 games, so I've got a pretty good understanding of, well, you know, a decent enough understanding of how it works and what the units do. Yeah, there seems to be some issues with this replay tool. Like, for example, not only can I not hover over units to see what they're called, I don't have health bars. Also, the edge of the map, I can't see the entire edge, and it's weird because it works fine if I play the game. Like, I can open up this map and I'll see everything. It's actually really impressive though, because TA didn't actually ship with replay tools. It was from 1997. I don't think any RTS had replays until considerably later. Maybe Sucker Brood War had it the next year, but I think, like, apart from that, nothing really had replays. And so to actually get replays on this, you have to use this external program, which does come shipped with the Escalation mod, but it's a separate program, and it sort of works really weirdly. Like, it actually loads you into the lobby, and then you're assigned as an observer, and then you watch it, as opposed to just loading up the game and what you would normally expect. And the observer mode works a bit differently. Like, the observer mode actually works fine. Like, I've watched a couple of games, live games, because people still play it on Game Ranger. So if you do want to play this, Game Ranger is the place to go. Pretty active community there, or active enough. Yeah, and when I was observing, you know, I had health bars. I had like, I could hover over units and see what the names were and such. So it's a shame. Well, several Peewees taking out the metal extractor, the construction vehicles, more durable than what you would expect from TA, but still unarmed and will get taken out eventually. I can reclaim to take out one, but it's, you know, not really worth it. It's only really worth trying to do that against the scout vehicles, and even then, the range on the reclaim is pretty low, so the scout vehicles can kite you and just go away. So good damage here from the arm player. Randy, that is. I'll just call him the Arm and Core because I'm going to forget these names. Because the thing is you know, I don't have names. I have them written down on this business card in my wallet that I pulled out, very improvised, to write down Arm-Roundy, Race-Core. Though I am glad we see the two factions, so you can kind of see both sides of the equation. The factions are, you know, mostly similar. There's a few differences though, mainly bunch of unique units. Core has things that Arm don't, and vice versa. Which I guess was with the first RTS to really have asymmetric factions, because obviously StarCraft took that to a whole next level the next year, but up until this, I can't think of any other RTS that had unique factions. You know, Command and Conquer, like, to a very small extent, had asymmetric factions, but at least I don't think they were done very well. You know, like, I remember Allies could get the rocket troopers, but Nod couldn't. And you're like, what? Why can't I build rocket troopers? Those seem like an important unit. You know, for asymmetry to work well, you can't take away important tools and things that are part of the counter system. Not that it actually mattered, because rocket infantry just sucked in CNCs, but I think as a general design, you know, you don't want to strip away things. Whereas in TA, you know, Arm and Core, they both have access to everything you need. And while they have unique units, like, there isn't an equivalent for the super heavy tank. I think it's called the Goliath. You don't really need one. You know, there are ways to counter it. Like the spider that actually stuns the Goliath. You know, the super heavy badass tank, you just stun it with with the spider, but the spider's quite weak, so it's hard to do that. So it's interesting how it works, and I guess the asymmetry is kind of similar in Subcom too, where the factions are all really similar, but then you have a lot of unique units and even unique structures actually, like UEF having the tier 3 point defense, no one else doing that. So I can appreciate that. Yeah, this is a nice pickup. Taking out the construction units always very frustrating. And looking for more damage. This is a pretty decent amount of the flash tanks, so we do see the vehicle transition. Now going for Roccos as well, the rocket K-bots. So they trade a bit better heads up than the Peewees do against the Raiders. Oh man. Okay, there's a laser turret there and one below that as well, but not gonna matter so much against all these vehicles. You can see just how vulnerable these metal extractors are. So the structures, the defensive structures that is, they work a little differently in this compared to Subcom. Because in TA, the defenses, like really all buildings, are not very durable. They get taken out pretty quickly if there's a lot of units. So they're cost effective, and you don't want to trade into them if your army is at a similar size to the relative cost of the structures, but you can just muscle your way through them pretty easily. Whereas in Subcom, that's not the case. Defenses are so powerful that you really need specific artillery units to outrange the defenses. Because attacking into them heads on is just throwing away a bunch of units. So people say that TA is faster than Subcom, and I can sort of see why. And I think certainly part of that is the way that the defenses work, is that if your opponent builds defenses, you don't have to back off and build artillery, you just attack them, assuming that your army is big enough. I mean, there seems to be a bit of a counter system as well. What I've noticed is that the fast attack tanks, like these and the AK bots, the infantry K bots, are not as good versus the defenses because those units are quite squishy. Whereas then you have the medium tanks, the instigators and the stumpies, which are just a lot more powerful against those defenses, but then don't do as well versus the fast attack units because their projectiles are quite slow. So you could say that you have a counter system for defenses, but in lieu of artillery, you have those tanks. But I mean, it's not that strict because even those the fast attack tanks just can push their way through defenses pretty easily as well. Again, assuming you have enough of them. The light laser turrets are actually pretty cheap. A lot cheaper than the point defense in Subcom that you would see. And then of course you get a lot heavier stuff like the heavy laser turrets or the GAT if you're core, and then even crazier stuff like the pop-up flame turrets. Those are nuts. The bulwarks of those missile installations that are in Escalation mod. There's actually a lot of Roccos here. Yeah, those raiders got taken out. Didn't do too much damage there. This is a large army. A lot of the wind collectors as well. Actually, solar collectors, wow. So in almost all of the games that I've seen, players will invest in wind collectors. It's actually rare to see so many solar. Interesting. Oh, we have the air production as well. Scouting's pretty hard on this, so getting scout planes is really useful. Just to fly over your opponent's base, see what they're going for. In a situation like this, you're not going to be able to scout someone's base with land units. So you definitely want to see what they're up to. Bombers are very lethal, so you want to see if they have an air production air lab, whatever it's called. See if they're going for bombers. Okay, that's going to be a GAT being built. And I think it's a fair way off being done. Wow, actually flanks one of the construction vehicles, takes that one out. Rocco's being routed, they have to retreat from all these raiders. And we have the heavy assault bot. Oh, I hear bombers. I don't think they're actually extractors there, but he obviously just issued them. So you see bombers taking out those metal extractors incredibly quickly, even one-shotting the missile defenses as well. But those bombers are actually quite expensive, and the missile defenses are not. Lethality is so high in this for structures. Even production structures, such as the vehicle labs and such, they get taken out really quickly as well. Something else that I noticed from Subcom, because I actually went back and played a bunch of Subcom today, because I played a lot of Subcom, but not recently. And then after having played a bunch of TA, I wanted to really compare it while it was fresh, and that was one of the things that I noticed in Subcom was wow, the buildings are really durable, and and it's different because to destroy structures you really need those dedicated artillery units, or at least with tier 1, if you want to take them out in a timely fashion. Oh, we have tier 2 now. We have the Moho extractors, the tier 2 metal extractors, so that gives them significantly more metal income. But requires the tier 2 production. We have the transition now to the Stumpies. These are the medium tanks, so these are much slower than the fast attack tanks. Quite hard to use in small numbers because their projectiles are very slow. But as the size of the battles, wow, actually a bulldog or bullfrog, they're the heavy tank. Pretty damn effective versus these raiders. He's getting completely collapsed upon though. But yeah, he's being rallied in. I actually have the wiki on my phone open, and I might even just check, because I don't know if it's bulldog or bullfrog, and it makes me very sad that I can't just hover over the name bulldog. I can't actually minimize either, because it seems to be a pretty common issue that if I minimize, I can't maximize the game back again. I mean, bullfrog would confuse me because that's the name of the that flak vehicle from Red Alert 3. Okay, we have the GAT, the heavy laser turret here, so gonna be a bit harder to attack into this position, especially with support of the light laser turret there as well. Might be worth transitioning out of these raider tanks, however. Not so effective versus these heavy tanks. He also has the walls surrounding the GAT, so a bit harder to destroy them. You can see the projectiles colliding on the wall with dragon's teeth. Okay, here are the bombers though. Nice. No anti-air position. Several bombers able to take that one out very quickly. Probably the second pass should take it out. Yeah, there we go. So bombers are really powerful, but they're expensive and they get shot down pretty easily. So you really have to find engagements where you know there's no anti-air. And immediately we see the missile turrets being built. The Bulldog. The Bulldog is a level 2 heavy tank that is substantially stronger than the Stumpy. It is a Bulldog, which sounds a bit more intimidating. Bullfrog is not so impressive, but as I was sort of alluding to earlier, the medium tanks and the heavy tanks as well, they scale better into larger fights because the weakness early on is that they just miss all the time because of their slow firing projectile. But when you have so many units in a fight, it doesn't matter if you miss because you will hit something next to it. So that weakness becomes obsolete when becomes irrelevant, I should say, because there's just so many things to collide with. It's actually really punishing the way that the projectiles work. You have to sort of lead your units in certain ways to make them actually hit or to dodge. So there's actually a lot of micro in that regard, to the way that you position your units and move them around to try and avoid projectiles. TA is a lot more micro intense than Subcom. Wow, nice flank with the pyros. So the pyros, as far as I understand it, are pretty good versus heavy units. They have a lot of damage, but quite short range, and they are not very good versus moving targets, but against something slow like the bulldogs, it doesn't matter. Takes them out very quickly, so I love this transition. He's also going for the medium tanks there, the instigators, so these bulldogs are certainly less effective now. Well, he's going to take out a couple of extractors here. I don't know if he one-shots them, it's 2 shots from extractor, yeah. Okay, we have the bombers for the core. Pretty good versus the Roccos, but there's not actually that many of them. It's one-shotting extractors anyway. I think he's just, yeah, he's aiming at all these the deposits, but a lot of them don't even have extractors on them. Oh, he's found some missile defense. Wow, several of the heavy laser turrets. Yeah, he reconsiders attacking them. Well, it seems we have both of our players trying to lock down the middle with these heavy laser turrets. The flanks have been a bit less action-packed, though these certainly are open and exposed. There is defenses there being invested on both sides. These are actually... Yeah, these are Moho extractors, and they're very exposed. That's a pop-up turret, so it's with people behind, not above those Moho extractors. I'm guessing we have Moho extractors here as well, or I certainly hope so from the core. But yeah, that's one being built. I don't know how many we have. It doesn't look like there's many. There's a couple. Geothermal power as well, being much more efficient compared to wind collectors, but limited to the geothermal vents. Something that I really like about the extractors is that the more resources they're netting, they're yielding, the faster they spin the turbine. Same with wind. Nice visual feedback to sort of convey the effectiveness of those structures. Things like that you don't always appreciate until you, or at least for me, you know, as I started working as a designer now on Ashes, I'm a lot more cognizant of these little things, these little quirks that are just little tidbits of good design. It's ways of communicating information without the need for artificial pop-ups, you know, having bars and numbers and stuff. If you can express that information in ways that's more natural, that this is better, I think. Makes it more intuitive and less overbearing. You still, of course, can just hover over it and it tells you the number, but you don't have to. So there's a lot of these bulldogs here. There's going to be a pretty significant army, and I like how he's attacking him where the defenses were not present, because there was a fair bit of them down here, but by going for the flank, he was able to avoid those turrets, and now he's cut off a bit of the income, and it's going to be harder to reinforce this position, so you can attack them later on. I guess there's still engineers, or rather constructors here, so can continue to build more defenses. Three light laser turrets. Okay, the pyros are pretty effective though. Still a lot of Roccos, however. Wow, those Bulldogs are getting taken out pretty quickly. Here come some of the Storm rocket bots for support. Yeah, they'll get taken out, wow. Okay, he might be able to take out one of these Moho extractors. That would make this attack worth it. Okay, big attack with the Raiders on the left flank. There's a pop-up laser turret. A few of these Stumpies in position. Bullfrogs as well, going to be joining the fight. Does he focus the Moho extractors? They have a bit more health, so they're not as easy to take out as just the regular metal extractors. Looks like he's getting cleaned up anyway. Another attack here, so his attack was a little spread out. Yeah, it didn't really do much, it's a shame. If he just went for both of these Moho extractors, that would have been pretty effective, but I suppose he wanted to try and avoid the pop-up turret. Oh, these are the artillery bots, the hammers? More and more heavy laser turrets. There's about 3 of them here. Okay, these are just fighters, so they're not very good versus units. Gunships are a lot bigger. It's actually something that I found really confusing about TA when I first started playing was trying to work out what the counters were and what the units did. It was quite unintuitive because everything can attack air, and things that can attack air can attack ground, at least in the default vanilla Total Annihilation. And the names weren't as helpful. So, for example, these anti-air turrets, as they're now called in the Escalation mod, they're originally called missile turrets, and they can attack ground targets, but their damage was quite low against ground targets. And same for the missile vehicles, like the Samson. So you didn't actually know what they did. You just see a missile turret, and like, well, what does a missile turret do? What does that mean? Fires missiles. So it's something that I think is important, is because RTS is so inaccessible as a genre compared to other genres for various reasons, like delayed gratification, for example. And so you want to try and make it as intuitive as possible. And so having units that are bad versus air being able to attack air, I think just makes it way more confusing than it otherwise should be. I suppose it's not too bad in that regard because you can see the fact that most things just consistently miss air units, but more egregious is the fact that anti-air units can attack ground targets as well. Either way, he's taking out a few of these. The defenses. He's got the pyros, so they're pretty good versus buildings. Decent army of the Bulldogs. I wonder if he has a tier 2 air lab. Does he even have a tier 1 air lab? I think I saw some bombers earlier, so he must do. Gunships, yeah, there are, of course, several bombers there, but bombers not particularly good versus those heavy tanks. Gunships would be much nicer. Tier 2 certainly delayed. So, alright, a lot of Raider tanks here, but again, not very good versus the heavy tanks, the Bulldogs. So I don't see this fight going too well for them. Yeah, they're starting to collapse. Only, I think, one Bulldog's gone down so far, maybe even none at all. They're very, very durable. Pyro's continuing to incinerate some of these structures. The pop-up the Immolator, I think it's called, the flame turret. Actually has a lot of range, a lot more than the Pyros. Here come the Pyros. Yeah, these are significantly more effective than the Raiders against these heavy tanks. I must admit, I don't actually know if there's a bonus for high ground. Like range or something? I'm not sure. Would be cool if there is, and it wouldn't surprise me given the fact that we do see all these gats built on top of the high ground. But I love this. We have the hammers, the artillery K-bots taking out the Immolator. So that's a very expensive structure down, and there's so many more defenses in position. But here comes a counterattack. Several of the Shadow Bombers. There's a lot of anti-air though, so I don't know how effective this is going to be. Oh my god, he takes out the missile structures, but that's really it. The hammers all survive. I think that's what the target was. Still the laser turrets there, but they can get taken out here. It's actually harder to use artillery in TA because you can't attack radar contacts, or at least not by default. So you have to get vision on the targets, or you have to manually attack ground where you know their target is. Whereas in Subcom, everything just attacks radar. So arty is certainly easier to use. Which I actually prefer, to be honest. I think it's kind of annoying. You have to keep suiciding scout units over and over again to get vision. Okay, he's going for the attack here, but he's attacking into the attack blast of all these artillery K-bots. So, yeah, reconsiders, backs away, but loses several units for his indecisiveness. Oh man, he's still hanging around. The blast radius of these hammers. Wow, that's a very forward Moho extractor. He must have several of them. I guess he just built one there because he had an advanced constructor nearby. There must be so much metal here waiting to be reclaimed. Okay, he's actually taking out these hammers though, so that's nice of him to do, but at the cost of a lot of units. Hard to say if it's worth it. Maybe if he gets this Moho extractor. Oh no, doesn't get that either. A lot of Moho extractors here as well. Actually building a fusion power plant. So that's going to give him a significant amount of energy income. Oh wow, Zeus transition. The heavy assault K-bots. Very, very powerful, but quite slow. He's even building the artillery tanks. I don't know what they're called, but I think the artillery tanks. Alright, let's see how effective this army is. The Zeus are pretty damn deadly. But they are attacking into the arty defenses here, and some of the laser turrets as well on the sides. Man, the army of the core is getting cleaned up pretty quickly. I don't know why these artillery units are moving in. Maybe they're not artillery, I should look this up. I just don't want to have 50 angry comments of people saying, no, it's not that, it's not that. Actually, we'll look it up right now. Okay, he's going for the... Takes out the Moho extractor. It was only in construction, though, and... Trying to take out this gap, but there's... The wall was blocking a lot of damage there, so very effective use of those walls. Finally cleans up the army, but now we have the Fidos. These are long range. I don't know if they're artillery or not, but they're certainly effective at taking units out from a distance, so... They're like a pseudo-artillery. That's gone. Oh wow, look at this artillery installation. We have a plasma battery here as well, so we have a lot of artillery from the ARM player. I'm gonna look up that artillery, that vehicle. Advanced vehicle plant. Core. Oh, the bombers. Okay, they take out a lot of the hammers, but not a lot. Are really good at positioning there with those fighters. Takes the bombs out very quickly. The only problem is if it's a unit that's not in the default game, it won't show up. If it's like an escalation only thing. This attack seems a little futile. Ooh, look, we have the rocket tanks. What are they? I think it's a diplomat. Long range rocket, very powerful. But very slow, so it doesn't hit moving targets very well, and it's a long reload time. Well, he's opening up now with the hammers, taking out those gats. No action on the flanks. These have been pretty passive for a while. Yeah, there's actually a lot of Moho extractors. We might have the tier 3 coming out soon. So it's referred to as the experimental gantry, which then builds the experimental constructors. So it's like effectively tier 3. And then you have some of the units are at about a tier 3 cost, or about 1,000 metal. And then you have other things like the Krogoth and the Raptor, which are about 30,000. So you have effectively both tier 3 and tier 4 in the one structure. Okay, the rocket artillery was able to take out the artillery installation, so Arty for Arty seems to be the name of the game right now. This is a new unit. This is the heavy rocket K-bot. I forget the name of it, but it's really long range, so it's like artillery in a sense, but it's a low angle projectile, so it gets blocked by Rexes as we're seeing here, the walls and the Rex. So it's good versus units, but only if it has a clear shot. Alright, left flank. Stuff's happening here, but no, getting repelled. These are only the Raiders, and actually, well, there was some of the, I think the Reapers, the flame tanks, but deciding not to commit into that. There's a lot of defenses there. Putting another artillery installation. Diplomats continuing to rain fire from afar. Oh wow, he's going for these Moho extractors. Don't know if we can take out these structures. Here come the tanks to defend. Does take out the heavy laser tower. One of the Moho extractors, which was actually wounded as well. Seems the arm is crushed this army while the core is going to be collapsing upon him with these heavy rocket K-bots. Plasma battery being a problem, however. These are a cool unit, the Mavericks, the gunslinging K-bots. They look so badass. It's probably the best example of where the ARM K-bots are very... They look like humans. There's a word for that, which eludes me right now, but... One of the interesting things about the... Never mind that. Okay, just looking for scouting. That's all it was. Yeah, one of the cool things about the design differences between the core and the ARM in terms of the visual design of the K-bots is the ARM K-bots look quite human. You know, that they're replicating a human form, and animals in case of the Fido and the spiders. Whereas the core are a lot more robotic in the sense that they don't look like humans, because they have arms for weapons, or they're like the cannon, which is just a box. Like even this rocket K-bot is a good example of that as well. It's just sort of a box with legs. And that reflects the lore, where the armor, you know, very embracing of the biology. They want to keep their biological existence, where armor are the ones, core are the ones infused with machines and don't have any respect for nature. So I think that's a nice little subtle kind of difference there in the looks. Pretty effective damage here. Taking out a few metal extractors and opening up a bit of a flank. Wow, so many of these Finks, the scout planes, is wanting, or rather the peepers for the arm. Just looking for vision, just wants to see what he's going for. Like, what's the tech? What are you going for, buddy? I don't know how successful that was. He sees a fair bit, but I don't know if it's really useful. The scout planes are certainly cheap, so throwing them away is not a big deal. That's their job. They're designed to be thrown away to get vision. Another arty installation. Are the diplomats still around? Don't know where they've gone. Alright, seems things have calmed down. We have a moment of break. Catch our breath. Oh no, never mind. Oh, the diplomat's here, wow. A little bit too far forward, I think. Yeah, the Reapers are a really good response to this. What more can we say? Actually, these bulldogs have survived. They were able to avoid most of the damage there and now powering through. The Fido's on the high ground. This is nice. Well, that's an experiment. I think it's an experimental constructor. Well, maybe not. Just looks different. Maybe I'm just crazy. Do we have experimental tech yet? No, I guess not. Okay, this is the Goliath, the super heavy tank. Very, very deadly. But very slow. Gonna get taken out there anyway. I guess quite outnumbered. Well, it looks like progress is being made by Arm in the top left. He's pushed back a fair bit of territory. Still no action in the bottom right corner, but we see this position's being heavily reinforced. Though I just sort of question the placement of the defenses, you know, building them behind these Mohawk extractors. You'd think this is where he would build his defenses. Looking for tech now. Well, a lot of air constructors. I just want to see experimental stuff. I don't know how far we're in, but I'm guessing it's like at least half an hour. Something that I noticed comparing TA to Subcom is that you take up a lot slower in this. I think part of the reason being is that it's a lot harder to build upgraded tiers of extractors because you have to first tech up from the factory, like build the experimental gantry or the tier 2 factory. And you got to build that new constructor, then you got to move the constructor in position and then build the structure. In Subcom, you just click an extractor and click upgrade. So you upgrade your extractors often before you tech up, and then having the upgraded extractors allows you to tech up because you get all this extra income. Whereas in NTA, it's certainly more difficult to do that because you can't upgrade extractors. And you know, it makes sense because in TA, you know, at least in the base game, there was only 2 tiers. There was no tier 3. There is no tier 4 either. I think you had in the expansion, the core contingency, you got the Krogoth, but that was only for core, which was weird. That one faction gets experimentals and the other one doesn't. And yeah, and so the game was sort of designed that you had to delay the tiers, given that there was only 2 of them. Whereas now that there's tier 3 and tier 4, effectively, it still has that delayed tech, for better or for worse. Well, the arm player continuing to push through. If he starts taking out the Moho extractors, then that's significant harassment damage. There's the Zeus K-bots here as well, but these rocket K-bots are doing pretty well, and the cans are there as well. So this is a tough army to crack. Oh, there we go. Yeah, experimental. I don't know what he's building, but it looks big. He has a lot of the construction aircraft there as well to boost that one out. Oh, and the rapiers, I think they're called the gunships. Very effective here. No anti-air. Surprised we didn't see those earlier. I guess there are fighters around somewhere. There's one over there. Well, he scouted this experimental tech structure, and he obviously sees what he's building as well. So when I focus the building down, I don't know how close he's getting to it, and I don't have health bars. Feels bad, man. But this is a really deadly transition. This gunship's going to take out a lot of these units. It's actually sending more units into the fray despite lacking anti-air, so that's a bit of a mistake. Oh, what happened? Oh, maybe he destroyed the unit being built rather than the actual structure. Because I know you can do that. You can focus the unit itself being... Oh, wow, he blew up the whole gantry. Okay, that was a nice play. Oh, no, he has a unit there. Wow, okay. Now, forgive me, I have no idea what this is. The only experimentals that I've used is the Krogoth. And then I've seen the Raptor, which is like the equivalent, is sort of the full tier 4, the experimental, the expensive one. This, I don't even know what that is. It looks weird. I'm guessing it isn't that expensive though, because he put it pretty quickly. It must be like sort of what I call the tier 3. Even though it's the same tier, but there's a massive price difference between them. Now, do we have the equivalent here for the arm player? I don't know what that structure is. I don't see an experimental gantry, but I could be wrong. I have missed one before. Well, a lot of Fidos. Yeah, I don't see it. Okay, sending in the fighters. So that's his plan for anti-air, is rely on these air fighters. Hopefully that's going to be enough, because this army's pushing through. But there's a lot of the Zeus K-bots there to meet them. I think is he reclaiming these wrecks? No, he's just building more Gats. Okay, he's caught these in a pretty bad position. The K-bots trying to, the construction K-bots trying to escape. I think he's going to be okay, though. A lot of the Mavericks are as well there, the gunslinging K-bots. Whoa, oh my god. Oh my god. Well, that's badass. So, I think he's just destroying all the structures around him. This is like an anti-structure experimental. He's absolutely wrecking all of these defenses. Okay, there it goes. Finally gets taken out there, but that was effective. Jeez. That was insane. I don't know what this unit is, but I want to know what it is. As far as I could tell, it seemed to be like impacting the ground, and it was damaging nearby structures. I don't know if it also damages units. I mean, he went in the middle of the map, so that's opened up a lot of the attack path here. A lot of those defenses were taken out, but there's still considerably more of them. Fido is going to be reinforcing the middle, so that's no longer a vulnerable attack path. Wow, this is a nasty push. Oh my god. Can he defend this? Getting more vision, wants to see what's going for. Is he going for another experimental? Is he going for more gunships? These are all construction aircraft, so they're not going to help much here. I think that's a stealth generator. What happened to the rapiers? Those gunships would be very helpful right now. Needs to back away these construction aircraft. They're getting shot down. They're pretty slow, so they get shot down easier than other aircraft. I think Core is out of stuff. He's lost a lot of units here, and he's trying to rebuild his experimental gantry, but this is a nasty army. Zeus, Maverick, Bulldogs, even Tier 1 reinforcing here with those stumpies. All we have is Raiders and the Storm. It's the Storm K-bots here, both Tier 1. Okay, with some cans. That's some decent units. They can pack a punch, but is it going to be enough? Still, some of the Gats in position. These are, wow, powerful bombers. Are they Tier 2 bombers? I don't know what they are. I'm guessing they're Tier 2 bombers. Wow. Yes, he can't throw away these bombers. He needs to keep them in defensive use without any anti-air nearby. Like here, this is the real threat right now, but this is a ridiculous army of Fidos. Wow, these Gats won't last long at all. The plasma batteries there as well. Pop-up flamer turret, but the Fidos are so good versus buildings. Absolute carnage. The defenses are crumbling. The base is now exposed. All these juicy Moho extractors. Looking pretty damn tasty to this army. Okay, he's trying to attack here with some Goliath heavy tanks. This is going to be a pretty deadly push. These Goliath tanks are so tough. They can take out these defenses very easily. This counterattack isn't going to be enough, though. There's no anti-air here as well, so if there's any air units, those could get taken out. But if it's a base race, I'm definitely favoring this. We even have those sniper K-bots as well. Oh, he's found the fusion reactors. If they get taken out, then that's going to be most of the power income, because you know, they deliver a lot of them, more than the solar. Oh my god, what happened to those Goliaths? They just got cleaned up, I suppose. Wow. Okay. Oh, they didn't go too well. Alright, he's found them. Oh, wow. They're volatile. Jeez, they both get blown up. There's two more up here, though, but they're also within range. And there's the GG. Our victorious... What was his name again? It was Randy. Pro_Randy. His name is correct. I've confirmed it. Man, that was a really intense game. I suppose the experimental didn't do enough. It ran into a bunch of base defenses and died. If he kept that for that army at the north, that may have been better. So perhaps that was the real mistake there, as he kind of threw away that experimental. Or maybe he went for it too early. Maybe he would have been better off just spamming tier 2 like we saw his opponent do. So that was a fun game. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was going to be more difficult to cast than what it was, because yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening. So if you liked it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I don't know how often I'll do TA casts, but I certainly would love to do more, because I really had a blast here. Pun intended. And so, yeah, subscribe for more RTS stuff. We do a lot of different RTS shoutcasts as well on the channel here. And if anyone does play TA Escalation, please do email me replays, because there's a lot of replays that I found, but I I don't know which ones are good and which ones are not. And given how long these replays go for, I really want to make sure I'm casting the best ones. So I would appreciate that if someone was to send me replays that like they know are really, really interesting. Like this was a really nice game. To make them more interesting and sort of showcase more of the game. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.